There are some people in the world that say that writing stories or composing music or dancing sparkly dances is easy for them. Nothing interferes with their ability to create. While I celebrate their creative freedom, a little part of me wants to punch those motherfuckers in the teeth. Welcome to our very first free week here on Wotown Writers. This week I am reading Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. And I debated for a little while about what I wanted to talk about or do or show you or whatever, and I decided that this was an appropriate week to talk about vampires. And no, not vampires of the Edward Cullen variety, vampires of the title of show variety. What you heard me say at the beginning of this video was actually a part of an opening of a song from the musical title of show, which I love. If you're a creative person, you'd probably love it too, so check it out. And it's from the opening of the song Die Vampire Die, and that song is kind of my theme song. In title of show's world, just going to quote directly from the song again: "A vampire is any person or thought or feeling that stands between you and your creative self-expression." So essentially, a vampire is your inner editor, inner critic, whatever you want to call it. And this week, we've just finished Nano. My inner editor is back in full force, which is good because I am currently starting to edit call to action, so that means I have to go through with my little pen and mark all the things that need changed or explained or the crappy wording, and half the time I'm wondering, was I high when I wrote this? It looks like I am bleeding ink on the paper. It's depressing. And in the song they mentioned 3 vampires. 1, 2, 3. So I'm just gonna go through all 3 of them. It's going to be great fun. The first vampire that was talked about are the pygmy vampires. They'll swarm around your head like gnats and say things like, "Your teeth need whitening. You went to state school. Shakespeare, Sondheim, and Sedaris did it before you and better than you." I think all of us have pygmy vampires of some variety, particularly because those are the ones that are just kind of nagging you and being like, "Why'd you do that? Why'd you get your hair cut that way? Why are you using that pen?" Or, I don't know. But I think in my writing, the version of the pygmy vampire that comes most into play is the last one that was mentioned, which is the Shakespeare, Sondheim, and Sedaris did it before you and better than you. Because I always feel like I'm comparing myself to other writers in some way, shape, or form. J.K. Rowling did it before you and better than you, even though I don't write fantasy. Nor the Battle to the Strong, because my initial foray into my interest of cults came from Leaving Fishers. It was Margaret Peterson Haddix did it before you and better than you. For Call to Action, since it's a dystopian novel, and my favorite dystopian novel currently is The Hunger Games, that trilogy. I heard a lot, my pygmy vampire kept on saying things like, "Suzanne Collins did it before you and better than you." Fortunately, I think those are the ones that are easiest to shut up, because they're just annoying, and so eventually it's pretty easy to tune them out. And for me, once I get invested enough in my novel, I tend to just ignore the whole before you and better than you thing. The second vampire mentioned in title of show is the air freshener vampire. If she smells something unpleasant in what you're creating, she'll urge you to psst it with some pine fresh smell-em-ups. The air freshener vampire doesn't want you to write about bad language, blood, or blowjobs. She wants you to clean it up and clean it out, which will leave your work toothless, gutless, and crushless. But you'll be left with 2 tight paragraphs on kittens that your grandma will be so proud of. The air freshener vampire probably gives me a lot more problems than the pygmy vampire does, because my air freshener vampire actually will take on faces, essentially. I don't write very much about happy, fluffy things. I write, my writings can get a little dark, and when I'm writing certain scenes or certain chapters or certain exchanges or dialogues or narrative or whatever, there are times when I think of what older family members might say. Like every single time I want to put a curse word in, or I want to describe something crudely, or I have something bad happen to a character, I'm like, oh, how would, insert family member name here react to that? Because I don't, I don't like being offensive to people, but that's kind of part of telling a story, is that you're going to offend some people. I've learned, because when I was younger, I only wanted to make people happy. I only wanted to write happy, fluffy things, because that's what I thought I was expected to write. But I have had to learn that if you write happy, fluffy things, and just happy, fluffy things, and have nothing really bad happen, it's going to be boring. And if my characters need to drop a curse word now and then they're going to drop a curse word now and then. It's just kind of how it has to be. You have to be true to the characters, you have to be true to the story, and darn what anyone else says. The last vampire is the mother of all vampires, and that is the vampire of despair. It'll wake you up at 4 a.m. to say things like, "Who do you think you're kidding? You look like a fool. No matter how hard you try, you'll never be good enough." Why is it, if some dude walked up to me on the subway platform and said these things, I think he was a mentally ill asshole? But if the vampire inside my head says it, it's the voice of reason. Vampire of despair. That is the one I have the most issues with. I have been woken up at 4 in the morning in a panic because I don't think something's working out right, or because I'm not getting a response from my queries, or I'm, I'm a, failure or something. I don't know. The vampire of despair frequently pops up at me when I'm having to show other people what I'm writing. So, like when I was in college and doing workshop classes, having to take in my work to be critiqued by my peers was something, a huge hurdle that I really had to get over, and it was hard, but there we are. Sending work out to beta readers is always a little difficult for me because I'm really nervous about how they're going to take it. I mean, even though all my beta readers are friends of mine, and for the most part, all of them have read things that I've written before, and I know they're not going to be deliberately mean or anything. They're going to tell me the truth. They're going to tell me how it is, but they're not going to do it just to make me cry or something. It's still very nerve-wracking. But I think the worst vampire of despair is sending out query letters, because I'm sending out essentially part of my soul to people that I've never met before, that I don't know, that don't know me, that they don't know, what my writing style is or where the story came from or anything like that. And when I was getting ready to start sending out query letters for, the battle, I had many panic attacks in the middle of the night about, sending stuff out, and it still happens. And I've learned to be okay with rejection. It's going to happen. I mean, in this business, it's going to happen, and I don't let it discourage me or anything. But there are some times where after the 40th, 50th rejection that you get, where you're just like, man, is anyone ever going to want my work? So it's hard, but it's one of those things where when it shows its face, I just need to read a funny book or talk to my friends, vent on my blog, put on a brave face. Those are the 3 vampires from Die Vampire Die and title of show. Pygmy vampires, Air freshener vampires, vampires of despair, they all frequent my life when I'm writing, and they're kind of my inner critics. I think vampires are a kind of inner critic. Definitely check out Title of Show. If you're a creative person, I think you'd really appreciate it. It's a story about, it's a play about writing a play, essentially, and all the fun creative stuff is in it. Also, kudos to my friend Corey, who kind of gave me the idea for this blog entry. She's a big Title of Show fan too, and she suggested that I do something with Die Vampire Die. So there you go, Corey. That one's for you. I don't know what the other girls are doing the rest of the week. I'm going to be fascinated to find out. And I will see you guys in a week. It'll be good times. See ya.